I want to give a shout out to my niece Trinity for the artwork. She is an excellent artist, and she saw my latest video and decided that she wanted to do something for my next video. So I told her, sure, send it to me and I'll feature it in the next video, and here it is. And if you want her to do some artwork for your YouTube channel or your YouTube video in the future, just give me your information in the comments and I'll get in touch with her and she can do that for you. Alright, welcome to another episode of SRT Amplification. Today we're going to be looking at the little single-ended amplifier that came out of a Westinghouse record player, probably from the late 50s, mid to late 50s. So I haven't really decided exactly what I want to do with this thing, but the idea that I have, let me pull this camera down here. The idea that I have for this is to insert it into this line 6 cabinet. Basically turn the solid state amp into a little screaming, you know, 1.5 watt tube amplifier. So that's what we're looking at. So I pulled this thing out of the case. If you'll remember from my first video what the case looked like, it used to be a record player. The record player had been pulled out of it, so all I got is the case, this tube amp chassis here, and this Alnico speaker right here. So that's what I have. I tested all the tubes came out good. Now we went from one extreme to the other. You know, in the Gibson BR6 amp, we had a chassis that only had 2 sides. Now we have a chassis that's got 4 sides. So this thing is totally enclosed here. I did pull this this piece in the back down so I could look inside there a little bit. But what I think I'm going to have to do in order to work on this thing is to actually unsolder these sides here and get this top off. So I'm going to go ahead and get the soldering iron warmed up, get these tabs off of here, and we'll pull this thing up and we'll look at the inside of it. Okay, so I was able to get this cover off fairly easy using my Weller standard 7200. I didn't know if it's going to be enough heat or not, but melted the solder pretty good, and I was able to get this off of here so we can see what's on the inside here. So there's going to be some issues that we have to address with this amplifier in order to make it safe and make it reliable and work for us. And I'm going to go over all that on a schematic. So we're going to have several options on what we can do. But I'm going to pull up the schematic here, and then I'm just going to narrate over the schematic, and we will take a look at what we want to do with this thing as far as modifications we need to make to it before we put it into this amplifier amplifier line 6 amplifier cabinet. So let me pull up the schematics and we'll go from there. Okay, so we're back with the schematic. Let me zoom in here so you can get a little bit better view. Okay, so we're gonna have several things we're gonna have to do in order to make this into a proper guitar amp, and one that's going to work well with other, you know, other pieces of equipment. Make it safe and to make it a little more tone friendly to you know, for a guitar. This thing was set up, you know, for a phonograph, so it's basically like kind of a hi-fi level, but the first thing I see here that we're going to have to probably address is how we're going to isolate this from other pieces of equipment. We can do this in several ways. If you notice here, this is taking your 120 volts right off your line, out of your outlet. And it's the switch that was normally allowing current to flow through this circuit was actually on the record changer itself. So we're going to have to do something in the circuit for a switch. So we're going to have to install that. But basically we're dropping our full 120 volts across all the filaments to get our voltages down to what the filaments need, instead of having a dedicated filament voltage, you know, typically, you know, 6 volts or 12 volts or whatever for the filaments, the way they used to do it back in the old days to save costs, so they didn't have to use a power transformer on these little bitty low powered amps where they didn't need the high voltage. This is just how they would do it. It was just a money saver. But one thing that I don't like about this is in order to get this full 120 volts, well, you're going to drop the full 120 volts across. Well, let me back up. This is really not drawn correctly, because this is drawn as if this thing had an indicator light, and it doesn't. On this particular application of a phonograph, it doesn't have an indicator light at all. So normally if you had an indicator light that would be dropping some of that voltage, you would put this on the center tap of this 35W4, but in actuality this is tied to pin 4 of the 35W4. So you're really dropping the 120 volts across the full filament of the 35W4 rectifier, the 50C5 output tube, and the 12AV6 preamp tube, along with this dropping resistor here, this 170 ohm 5 watt dropping resistor, which is nothing more than a toaster oven that's just creating heat and taking that, dropping that extra voltage that we have left over. So because these are in series, the same amount of current's running through all of them. So you're probably looking at about maybe, I don't know, close to maybe 250 to 300 milliamps total current draw through this. So you know, you got a pretty good amount of heat going through these. You figure your filaments are red hot. Well, this resistor's kind of the same way. So that's why the 5 watt resistor is in there for that heat. So anyway, with all of that being said, I was looking at different things, putting an isolation transformer in here, doing all kinds of things, and I was thinking, well, you know, if I'm just going to use it myself, I'll just put a 3-prong plug on it, get the chassis to ground reference, and put a polarity switch or something on it. Or you know, an indicator or something on it, or just leave it like this and put a polarity switch on it. Let me rephrase that. So, but then I got to looking at this circuit, and I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen something similar to this before. It's not that uncommon from other conversions that I've seen in the past. So I went searching around on the internet, and I found this. And a lot of people have taken these old radio. This is a common circuit from radios back in the 40s, and they've taken it and they've modified it into this. They added an isolation transformer, and did some tone and circuit, tone controls and stuff like that. I was thinking, wow, this could be really great. It uses an extra 12 AT7s and 12 AV6s. This uses 12 AT6s, but it uses an additional one, and I think that would be great, that second one, for the type of tone control that we want to put in here. Beef up the preamp stage a little bit. Don't know if I want to go with 2 inputs, but that's an option right there as well. And some of you may be looking at that transformer over there going, oh, that's not an isolation transformer, that looks like a 2-to-1 transformer. And it would be if, I think this was drawn actually to be used in Europe, where they have a 240 volt line voltage. So, but in our application, what we would do is we just put these 220 volt windings in parallel with each other, and we get a 1-to-1 ratio right here. So that's an option right here. Another thing we can do with this circuit, because of the additional 12 volt filament, we could actually eliminate this toaster oven right here. In this case, it's a 75 ohm resistor that they're using, because they got that extra 12 volts dropped across this extra tube filament. We could actually do away with this by converting this 35W4 into a 50C4, which would drop 50 volts across it, drop 50 volts across the 50C5, and I believe it's a 50C4 rectifier. I'm almost certain that's what it's called. I'll have to check on that, but there is a 50 volt rectifier regardless that we could put in here. It's still a half wave rectifier. That would do away with the necessity for this drop-in resistor right here. So that's an option. So the only downside to this, with having a transformer, a smaller transformer like this with the half-wave rectification, is because of the half-wave rectification, you know, you could have some standing DC on this transformer windings and you could overheat your transformer. Going directly into your line, the transformer feeding your house is so large that this is minuscule to it, so it really doesn't affect it. But having a smaller transformer like this, we could run into some problems with that. So this transformer may have to be oversized for the use. You know, instead of going with something small as a 50 VA, you'd have to go maybe to 150 or 200 VA something in order to accommodate for that heat. So I don't know if we want to go that route or not, but this is interesting right here. I'm thinking that this may be the circuit that we put in that chassis. The only thing that could prevent us from actually doing this circuit is the real estate we have in that little chassis box. I don't know if we have enough room for another tube socket, but it will eliminate a lot of other components that you see in this other one. There's quite a few more resistors and capacitors in this one than there is in this newer version right here. So we'll salvage what we can out of this if we decide to go this route, and what we can't salvage we'll replace with these new values, especially the capacitors and especially these filter caps. You see here, this circuit is using a CAN capacitor that's got three-stage CAN capacitor, values of 60 microfarad, 40 microfarad, and 20 microfarad. And this one's only using 22 microfarad and a 47 microfarad. So to obtain the B plus for the plate of the output tube, and then the B plus plus for the plates of the two preamp tubes. So we'll see what this looks like. I'll do a little bit more design on this, especially in the tone circuit. This one still's got a really simplified tone circuit, but because of the extra gain, I think the tone circuit will actually work better in this amplifier design than in the last one. So if you have any other recommendations or anything else that you think would benefit this circuit, any modifications or anything, let me know in the comments below. If you think there's something that we can do better to this, using just kind of the basic what we have here with you know, very little modification to what we have here, to put something like this into use and make it into a guitar amp, put it in the comments and I'll look through it and we'll see what I like this to kind of be a group build. So if you've got ideas, let me know and we'll put this thing together. This is more than likely going to be just, you know, for my personal use. But when we go to build this, I'll actually, you know, have it on video every step of the way so you can see what we're doing on the build. But appreciate you watching this video, and please hit subscribe and like this video, and tune in for part 2 of the Class A amp from a Westinghouse record player. Thank you.